friends, Molly here. Today we are going to talk about producing an audiobook. So if you're here for book reviews, this week's video is going to be not your thing, maybe, but if you're a self-published author, this information may be useful to you. I had an audiobook produced for my book Dark Bloom, and since then I've had a lot of authors reach out to me and ask me questions about that. So I decided to put together a video. We'll go over the process, the pricing, and just some general information about producing an audiobook. I don't think I need to make this disclaimer, but I am not the end-all be-all of information. I'm just going to tell you what I experienced, and maybe this will give you some insight to producing your own audiobook. Here we go. So, as most things in this business, I had no information about producing an audiobook. I didn't think it was something I could do. I just assumed, like most things, it was well above my means. I was on KDP's dashboard, the main page where it shows your books, the pricing, that they're live, etc. And at the bottom was a link to ACX, and it mentioned something about audiobooks. So I clicked on it. Let's check this out. And yeah, everything's there. ACX is linked to Audible, so it automatically has all of your book's information, which is really nice. That is quite an easy start to the process. So we'll get into the process, how it goes. The first thing you'll do is you'll select an excerpt from your book. The excerpt I chose for Dark Bloom was a lighthearted scene, actually, of some silly banter between Nick and Kate. Quite misleading to what the book will be, but I chose this because I really wanted to see, I wanted to hear the narrator's interactions as my two main characters. I wanted to hear how that would go because that's really the most important part of my story. I wanted to make sure that they were going to capture these two people perfectly. So you post your excerpt, and then you are now awaiting auditions. At first it was slow, but then they just started coming in. I would say I waited until the audition started to kind of fizzle out before I started making my big decision. 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say it was open for auditions. What's cool is I think the excerpt I chose was about 3 minutes long. So you get to listen to about 3 minutes of a narrator performing the excerpt you chose from your book. You can favorite them, so you can put little stars next to the ones that you like the best. I had some friends and family listen to some of them just to get their thoughts and ideas, but I had no idea. Should I choose a female voice, a male voice? I didn't know what to pick. And I remember thinking, man, I just wish I had somebody who listened to audiobooks all the time, who could really give me some great insight into this. It's me. I listen to audiobooks almost every day. So I was the expert. I just wasn't willing to trust myself. I narrowed it down to about 2 or 3 voices, and then ultimately I went with the narrator I chose. So the next step is you send them a contract with typically with pricing, like you agree to the pricing option that they have expressed, and a time frame. You put when you would like this to be done, and any notes, of course. They accept or deny the contract or ask for revisions if they can't meet those deadlines. And once you have a contract going, the auditions close and they begin production on your audiobook based on when they told you they could start, of course. So the timeline, for me personally, my narrator told me that he was not going to be able to get started. So I started this process in July. My narrator told me that he was not going to be able to get started until mid to late October. He wanted to have it done by Halloween, but that didn't work out, and that's fine. I was just like, yeah, as long as it's done eventually, that'd be cool. He ended up finalizing it a little after November started. So once they produce your audiobook, they upload their recorded chapters into ACX, and you get to listen to them. So I sat down. It took me about 2 days. Luckily, I had these 2 days off right after he finished up, I took 2 days where I picked up the physical book and listened along. I had a Word document open and I just jotted down, well, chapter 17 at this place marker, there's a word for it, timestamp, there you go. At this timestamp, he left out a word or whatever. There weren't very many revisions that I needed to ask for, but I went through the entire thing. One thing that did happen was part of a chapter got cut off at the end, so I noted that. And so after I finished listening to it, jotted down my revisions, I sent them to my narrator. He fixed them within like 2 days. It was very quick. And then he sent everything back. I listened to those 2 chapters or however many it was that needed to be fixed, made sure they were good to go. And then I submitted everything to ACX. So then ACX has their quality control checks. And there's 4 steps, couldn't tell you what they are, but they tell you it's gonna take about 10 days. Well, mine took about 3 weeks, but I did some research beforehand. I looking out on Reddit, I saw anywhere between 10 days and 3 months, and I was like, oh gosh, what do I do if it starts taking, a month, 2 months? Do I reach out to them? It didn't take that long. It took about 3 weeks, and then my book was published. Let's talk about probably the most important part of this, pricing. When you get auditions on your book, they will note what their pricing requirements are, I guess is the best way to put it. So some narrators do royalty share. This concept really baffled me because I couldn't picture, I was like, what if I sell one book? They make like what, $1? I don't know. That seemed really sketchy to me, and maybe it's that it was that simple that I couldn't wrap my brain around it, but I went and researched it. I guess it's a great way to go if you're a new narrator and you're trying to get your foot in the door. It seemed strange to me, and I couldn't fathom, how they make their money off of sitting down and recording for, 7 to 10 hours. Anyway, it didn't matter though, because the narrator that I chose actually went, his pricing was price per recorded hour. So his particular price was $100 per recorded hour. I saw some that had $50 per recorded hour, some that had $200. So ultimately, for a 7-hour and 10-minute audiobook, I paid the official price was $717. Because I was paying him directly through Venmo, I threw a little bit on, but I didn't like tip a vast amount of money. There was no third party to go through that was going to be scraping any of that off. I asked the wonderful people of X who have done this before, like, do I tip? I don't know. So I tipped a little bit. I think I did $730. The only thing that I wish I had known beforehand, so when you publish a book on Kindle Unlimited through Amazon, you get the option of exclusive distribution or non-exclusive. And non-exclusive, I believe that allows like bookstores to have your ebook or your paperback. It allows you to sell your book other places other than just Amazon. So when I was setting everything up with ACX, I also chose non-exclusive to Audible because I don't know what I'm doing, and that was what I chose for Amazon, so why not choose it for this? Here's what I learned about that. I learned that you don't get Audible promo codes when you choose this option, which made me very sad because I had so many people that I wanted to throw promo codes to, people that have just been really supportive of me, people I know that do only audiobooks, and promo codes are just a really great way to get your book out there. Sometimes somebody who might not have purchased your book might get a promo code and be like, yeah, you know what? I don't have anything I'm listening to on audio right now, so I'll check it out. I just think it's a nice way to entice people to listen to it. But I didn't get Audible promo codes. However, I was talking to another author who also went the non-exclusive route, and they told me that if you go to Findaway Voices and upload your audiobook there, Findaway Voices distributes your audiobook to Spotify, Barnes & Noble Audio, and there's like 30 retailers. I have no idea what they all are. Spotify gives you 100 promo codes, which is super cool. I think that Spotify is really working on building their audiobook listener base. So they have also even waived the fees to Findaway Voices. So if you sell an audiobook on Spotify, from what I understand, you get 100% of the royalties from Spotify because they have waived whatever fees go into, I don't know, fees, business stuff, I don't know. But I was reading about it. Spotify says that you get 100% of the royalties from your audiobooks. And I believe that is also an enticement for authors to put their books on there and get more listeners, essentially. So Spotify promo codes have been a super cool thing because I've given out probably about 30 at this point, and that leaves me with 70 promo codes, and I'm just like, people, like, take these. I want people to listen. Okay, so that's the only thing. If you want Audible promo codes and you want to stay exclusively with Audible, then choose the exclusive option. It goes to Audible, and I believe Apple as well. But only those two retailers. If you want to do what I did with the Findaway Voices and, doing the Spotify promo codes, choose non-exclusive. If you do one or the other and you decide, oh shoot, I went exclusive, but I actually want to do non-exclusive, you can change it. However, you have to wait 90 days. So that's an option. I did reach out to them initially. I was like, I chose the wrong thing. How can I change this? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. You can totally change it in 90 days. I'm not going to go and change it. I like the way it is. I like the Spotify option. I think that's super cool. Okay, last but not least, I would be remiss if I did not shout out my own narrator. Joe James. I chose Joe James as my narrator because he did a fantastic job. One of the things that helped me decide who was going to narrate Dark Bloom was, one of the biggest things was me personally, this is just a preference, I think it sounds strange to the ears when a male narrator does a really high-pitched female's voice. Joe James did a really great job at doing a good Nick voice, and then when he was speaking as Kate, he would just do a slight inflection of his voice, just a slight raise of the tone, so you knew it was a different person speaking. You knew it was Kate's voice, but it wasn't really unnatural, and I enjoyed that. Joe James also has a very deep, suspenseful voice, which I really thought was great for Dark Bloom. If you aren't familiar with my book, that's fine, but it's a post-apocalyptic horror, so you have all these tense moments, and I just really enjoyed his voice for bringing that to life. Joe James did a fantastic job. He was absolutely wonderful to work with. So I mentioned the timeline. He told me off the bat he wasn't going to get started until about October. I think he had to push it back another couple of weeks, which was totally cool. He was very upfront with me about all of this. Again, I didn't have any specific time that I was looking to have this out, so I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care. When I asked for the revisions, I did already mention this, but I sent him the revisions. He read and responded to that within an hour or two. Just my initial message about needing revisions, and then those were made within the next day or two. So that made it really nice, especially when I started this process at the end of July. So I was so excited about having this audiobook, and of course it's here. I have all of it, but I can't put it out there with these things, that he needed to fix. I think the only two things I asked him was that chapter I mentioned that got cut off. He said that happens sometimes. It is what it is. And then there was one chapter where he left off a phrase. I ended a lot of my chapters with either keep moving or don't die. And I almost didn't say anything, but I was like, you know, this is kind of like become the mantra to my zombie horror books. So I did ask him to add that back in. Again, he made the revisions very quickly. He was just very responsive, very professional, very polite. He has a website and all of that. I'll link that below for anybody that's interested. For transparency purposes, so my audiobook came out December 1st of 2024. It is January 27th of 2025, so almost 2 months. I've sold about 37 audiobooks just on Audible. That's just from Audible. The Spotify stats, I don't even know how to find or look at. I have no idea where the stats are for anywhere else. I'll figure that out maybe. Is it worth it? I get asked that question a lot too. Financially, maybe. I mean, it's only been a month and a half. I doubt I'm going to continue to sell, 40 books every couple of months. If I do, then it'll definitely pay for itself probably in a year or two. It's worth it to me because audiobooks open up a whole world of audiences. There are a lot of people out there that only listen to audiobooks, or that's their primary way to ingest books. I read physical books, but I have an hour commute to work. I get through several audiobooks a month. I love audiobooks. So to know that it's out there for those types of people that's their main way of ingesting books, it's definitely worth it. Also, the promo codes are worth it to me too, because then you could send somebody a physical copy of your book. You can send somebody an ebook, but that costs you money. And sending a promo code, I get that you paid for it in a way, but sending a promo code, it doesn't cost you anything at the time. It doesn't cost them anything. And then they get to listen. And then ultimately, I feel like it's worth it because listening to Joe James bring this book that I wrote to life, bringing in every tense moment, every heartfelt moment, just the fact that he nailed this narration is so cool. It was wild listening to my book on audio. Dark Bloom has a lot of deep themes, some rough stuff. And writing it was tough at times, but then hearing it being read to me as if it was someone else's thoughts and ideas, it was almost difficult at times to listen to. Joe James, he brought it to life. So anyway, if you're still here after all of that info, thank you. And comment your favorite audiobook. Tell me what your favorite book to listen to was. Maybe it was because of the story itself. Maybe it was because of the narration. I think that one of my favorite audiobooks so far has been World War Z. And maybe that's cheating because there's like 30 actors in there. So you get a pretty intense, wild stories. So yeah, World War Z, one of my favorite audiobooks. Very entertaining, very wild and riveting in audio. Thanks for watching.